I think we are live, people. Just give me a second.
There you go.
We live?
Yes, we are.
Okay, people. Yes, we are live. Great stuff, guys. How are you doing, people? It's your boy Veedu Vidz in the house. I hope everyone is well. Thanks for joining in. We've got a great discussion ahead of us today. We are privileged to be joined by Abdullah Gondal. He is a Pakistani ex-Muslim who is living in North America. And we're going to have a very interesting conversation about Islam, about certain things going on in Pakistan. And of course, we'll be talking about Abdullah's story as well. So just to sort of, we've got quite a few people joining in. So please, before we get into the discussion, be sure to share the link to tell other people that we're having this conversation. Share on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, whatever it is, and hopefully we will get this show on the road. So Abdullah, thank you very much for being here with us today. I really appreciate your time.
It's a pleasure being here with the one and only Veedu Vidz, who's as famous as me now.
Oh, please. I've got a long way to go. Yeah, I've got a long way to go. But if you could start by maybe telling those people who maybe aren't familiar with your story as to your sort of background. You were raised in Pakistan, I believe, and you're an ex-Muslim now. How does that happen? Go for it.
It was a long journey. When I was around like 13, 14, I became hyper-religious. I believe it's grade 9. And, I was the typical, the Maulvi label. The mullah label would fit on me. I would wear the thobe and the shalwar kameez all the time. Had, like a scruffy beard growing, never shaved. My pants tucked up all the way, halfway up my shank. Whenever I listened to music, I'd put fingers in my ears and avoid going to restaurants like that had background music playing in them. But my family was a bit more moderate. Like my mom would pray 5 times a day. My dad would go to the Friday prayer. They'd listen to music and stuff, but we'd still have, the Milad celebrations and, fasting and, Eid sacrifice. So they weren't that extreme. It was just me who got a little out of hand.
Can I ask? Your family seems pretty sort of moderate, down the middle of the road, whatever. What
average
made you? Sorry.
It's an average Pakistani family.
Yeah. Of course, you're average Pakistani. There's obviously religion in the background. You pray, you don't pray, whatever. I mean, So what made you different from everyone else?
When I was 14, 15, I was having an identity crisis. Who am I? And then there was this whole stream of Dr. Zakir Naik and Peace TV all the time and they kind of encouraged me to look into like science and the Quran. And then being that young and being so impressionable, like I just became super religious. It lasted from the age of 14, 15, all the way up to like 22. So anyways, I was going to the mosque 5 times a day to pray, like literally getting up at 3 a.m. in the morning to go pray Fajr and all that. I'll just mention one incident just to give you an idea of how extreme I got at certain points. So in high school, I was the head prefect, or like the head of the student council. And there was an oath-taking ceremony happening in front of about 300 to 400 students on stage with the principal. And what she would do is she'd call people up and then she'll give them a badge, shake their hand, take a picture. Now, when I got on stage, I was the last person to do it because I was the head of the student council. And when the principal called me over, I refused to shake her hand in front of 300 kids. And I said it in the mic, I don't shake hands with women because it's haram.
Wow, that's amazing. That's mashallah, brother. That's you've got nerves of steel. Nerves of steel. I don't think I would be able to do that. I would probably just quickly shake and walk away. I don't think I could do that.
So I did that. And just to put into perspective, the principal's son was my classmate. So she was about my mom's age. Anyways, I pulled that stunt. And surprisingly, a lot of the teachers in my school were impressed by it. They called me over. They bought me lunch. They're like, mashallah, you have such determination, such motivation for the deen. May Allah help you. you're standing up for the truth. And I was like, okay, all right. But later on, I realized that was like one end of the spectrum. And it's based on Muhammad saying that it is better for you to put an iron nail through your head rather than touch the hand of a woman that is not halal for you.
Yeah, that's true, because I actually heard that same saying. Sorry, 1 second. Thank you. Just do that. Thanks. I actually heard that same saying. Sorry, I actually heard that same saying when I was in school, and we were watching this. I went to a Muslim school for a few years, and I went in the UK, and we were watching this TV show about Muslims, British Muslims who were in Morocco, and they were climbing this mountain, whatever it was, and on the way down there was a bit of a tricky sort of road, and the female, said she was struggling to walk down, and the guy said, "Oh, just lean on my shoulder." He goes, "No, sorry, I can't do that, because that's punishable, and there's a hadith saying that it's better to touch. It's better to try, like you said, it's better to have a nail through your head than to touch someone of the opposite gender." And I thought that was absolutely crazy. And the teacher in the room was like, "Yep, that's 100% right. 100% right. Don't touch someone is worse than." I was like, "What the hell is going on?" It's crazy. It's crazy. So, from you were inspired by my hero Zakir Naik.
Yeah.
But it's amazing, because he has, in many ways, inspired, in a good way, bad way, whatever you want to call it, so many people. Either pro-Islam or anti-Islam. I remember when I was growing up, similar age, I was like, "Wow, man, this guy's amazing. He's memorized all these books. He's so intelligent. He's very quick. Anything you ask him, he seems to have the answer." There wasn't a single thing that someone could ask him and he didn't have the answer. I was like, "Wow, man, how could you not agree with someone like this?" So I went through a similar kind of sort of phase, or yeah, exactly, phase, journey, whatever, with Zakir Naik. Now it's ironic that I'm mocking him, but at that age, sort of 13, 14, 15, 16, this guy's amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, I was actually at a point where I was memorizing the worst numbers like he does. And I started, trying to like give small lectures in my school, especially at the start of functions. Like I was the go-to guy if they have a function, then they'll call me to recite the Quran in the beginning, whatnot.
Wow, that's amazing.
I was at the masjid. I led Salah in Pakistan. I gave the azan at the masjid a lot. I was very involved. I would like come like an hour early at the mosque sometimes on Friday and just help the guy who takes care of the mosque, put extra sheets on for people to pray on and all that. Even actually, I'd stay late and clean the mosque, vacuum it sometimes. Wow. Like I was really into it. Yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, you're doing all these things. Listen, Muslims can't even turn up to prayer on time. You're 1 hour early. Forget about, for me, the highlight of the week was I went to Jummah, so I can tell my mom, "Listen, I went to Jummah, the khutbah was this." Tick. Absolutely tick. Forget about 5 prayers a day. Forget about the sunnah prayers, the nawafil prayers, cleaning the mosque. I can't even clean my room. Okay. So you're really, really devout. What was the turning point?
So I was 19 when I arrived in Canada. That was the December of 2013. And just before I was about to leave, it was the first time in like 2 years I wore a pair of jeans and a sweater, because I always dressed like traditional clothing. Anyways, I get to Canada, and it's 2014. I get involved with the local MSA, the Muslim Student Association. I get really involved that I'm giving khutbahs, I'm leading the salah, giving the azan, I'm talking in halakas, and it went on for about 2 years. That almost every Jummah I was given the khutbah or leading salah regularly, and I would actually arrive at the university at like really early in the morning at like 7 and pray Fajr if it was winters, just later in North America. Then I'd stay the whole day, attend my classes. Sometimes I had to leave class to come pray. And I would go home after Isha. Sometimes that'd be 11 at night. Like I would just spend the whole day in the MSA. Later on, when I graduated, I started working. I got more exposed to working with people from different faiths and ideologies, right? And a couple of people at my work were atheists, and I mean, they could notice like I had a longer beard, so they asked me questions. Hey, can you cut your beard or not? So I told them I'm Muslim. So we got on discussions about Islam, and then they started asking me questions. Oh, I heard Muhammad did this. Like, he married a 6-year-old, or the Quran is indistinguishable from a mythology book, like let's say like the Epic of Gilgamesh or the Bible or any other religious scripture, right? And that got me wondering. At first, I started researching to answer their queries, but the more I researched into Islam, I was like, whoa, there's a lot of stuff I didn't know. And it gave me a different perspective on the issue. I started asking more fundamental questions like, wait, why do I believe that the moon was split in half? Or why do I believe that Muhammad might have gone to heaven on a horse, So then I understood the burden of proof, and eventually it was 2017 April is when I officially left Islam. I came out of public in the end of May, like literally 2 days before Ramadan. So that was an interesting time.
You chose the best time or the worst time, depending on how you look at it, to come out as an ex-Muslim, because in Ramadan time, everyone's super religious and everyone's super, I'm gonna fast, I'm gonna pray, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna make up for my sins. Meanwhile, you're saying, yeah, I don't believe in this stuff anymore. It's a incredible time to sort of to come out. And when you came out, what was the response? I mean, were you still in university at the time?
No, I'd graduated. I was married. The Canadian Muslim community wasn't as bad. They weren't giving death threats, but there were a lot of agitated people. People were mad because I was such a central figure, right? Like at the MSA annual dinner, I was the one on stage reciting the Quran in front of 400 people and all that. So it took them by shock. People called me over, just said, hey, don't do it. The worst part was when my parents and then the Pakistani community found out. Death threats galore. I mean, people were calling my wife, she was still Muslim at the time, they were calling her the white devil who took me away from Islam. And
wow.
I am now being paid by the Israelis and Illuminati to do this.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, the Israelis and the Illuminati are never too far from any ex-Muslim.
Yeah.
But I mean, please let me know if you don't want to go into this. But your wife was still a Muslim, right?
She was. She is no longer a Muslim. Right. Okay. But I don't delve too much into her personal beliefs.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, she isn't a Muslim either. I'll touch quickly upon her story that when I became an ex-Muslim, she was kind of shocked to find out too. And she was like, the first thing she said was, we can't stay together because you're not Muslim anymore. And, she was very emotional about it. Later on, when she saw me posting these hadith, these verses that she never heard of, and they were actually very, very confusing and, touched a nerve. And eventually, about like 2-3 months down the road, she was like, okay, I'm not part of this anymore. And now she actually supports me a lot. She supports that I'm an activist and I stand up for, freedom of speech, religion, women's rights, and whatnot.
That's great. I mean, it's I suppose you're lucky in that sense, and so am I, because my wife also has the same beliefs as me. It's very tough for those people who, if they leave Islam and their partner doesn't, and they're still very religious, then it's a very tough situation. And it's even tougher when you have kids, because what happens then? I mean, it's really, really tough and quite distressing when you realize, what, this isn't the truth, but your partner is on a completely different level. And what are you doing? That's, it's very tough. I've heard so many different stories about that kind of stuff. But,
what are you going to do with the kids when they grow up? Do you want to teach them Quran? You want to send them to like an Islamic school and all those arguments? So that's good that they were avoided.
Absolutely. So can I ask you, when you first came to Canada, and you were saying that when you started to work and you came across different people, atheists, Christians, whoever it may be, was your initial response to think, oh, they just haven't read the Quran the way I have. They haven't read the Hadith the way I have.
Yeah,
If only they saw it from my point of view, then they would see Islam as the
exactly.
truth.
One thing that came into mind, they haven't experienced the sweetness of Iman yet, so they can't see it the way I do. Stuff like that would pop into my mind. I would try to my best, I even think gave a copy of the Quran to one person, and I was like, oh my God, I know he's going to convert to Islam. And eventually it turned out the other way. He brought more notes against it. So I was like, oh, okay. One other thing I forgot to mention earlier was when I was in Canada, I helped convert a Christian man to Islam. And I saw pictures of that, me standing with the guy, hugging him and him taking his shahada and all that. So, yeah.
That's amazing. So the smile for the camera, you got like this, but like, yeah. So, I mean, is he still Muslim, or what did he make of your deconversion, or whatever you want to call it?
I haven't been in touch with him. This was back in 2014, and I lost contact with him in 2015 because he moved cities and he graduated university. So I'm not sure what he's up to, but hopefully he came across my stuff and maybe contacted me somehow. That'd be great, get back in touch with him.
Absolutely. I just want to ask you a question that came in from a Patreon. So guys, if you want to make sure that your questions are answered, you can support me on Patreon. It doesn't have to be a lot. But I've got a question here saying, if Abdullah Gondal could redo his coming out, what would he do differently, if anything? Would you do anything differently?
Yeah, I would actually structure it better. I would make it more organized. The thing was, I didn't know a lot about how people were online and how would they react. So now with the experience, I would have toned the way I was criticizing a little down, maybe interact with people a little differently. Because, sometimes, when you're talking to somebody from North America and the way they're educated and the way they talk is different compared to a Pakistani person who's been living in that country for 20 years and can't even imagine that Islam can be wrong, right? So those are a few things I would focus on, yeah.
Fair enough. And I think there was one more question. Is Abdullah Gondal open to joining ex-Muslim support and advocacy communities such as XMNA in North America? Many would love to see him at meetups.
Yes, definitely. I'm actually looking forward to it. I just moved cities, so I was trying to organize meetups in the previous city where I was, but definitely I would love to meet up with fellow people, especially with the stories that I've heard. I mean, we need each other's support a lot. So yeah, I'm totally up for it.
Absolutely. So guys, if anyone here is from the XMNA, Abdullah Gondal is more than happy to get involved, and I think he's got a very interesting perspective and story. So get in touch with him somehow. How would they be able to get in touch with you?
You can just contact me on Facebook. Just go to my Facebook profile. That's where I mostly post. I sometimes do live streams like what we're doing today, and mostly with Abdullah Samir. We have some collaboration efforts. So yeah, if you find a video of mine with Abdullah Samir or Veedu Vidz here, just leave a comment. I'll give you my Facebook profile link, so you can put that in the description too. Send me a message in Messenger, and I'll try to get back to you guys.
Great stuff. Great stuff. And also, Abdullah Samir is doing great work in this area as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So let's go on to something which is close to both of our hearts, and that is Pakistan. I was born in Pakistan, although I came to the UK when I was 1, so I didn't really live there properly. But you obviously spent so much time in Pakistan, and there's so many problems going on in Pakistan with political, social, religious. But I think the main, or sort of one of the main threads of the problems, I think, has to do with religion, with extremism. And as someone who believes in free speech, and believes that we should be able to express our opinions and change our minds in our life. It's very hard to do that when you have blasphemy laws, when you have apostasy laws. How do you think this has impacted sort of discussion? I mean, forget about drawing the card from the Prophet. I mean, we're not even anywhere near that in Pakistan. Just having a basic conversation, an intellectual conversation, and saying, yeah, I don't agree that the Prophet was a perfect human being.
Where do you think we are? That in Pakistan, especially with normal people. The Pakistani population is so deeply engulfed in religion that they see Islam as their identity. You know, they're Muslim first, Pakistani later. You say the slightest thing against Muhammad, even if you're practicing Muslim, you say it in the wrong way, they'll accuse you of blasphemy. Like what happened with Junaid Jamshed. He quoted a hadith, and it just was showing that Aisha was a jealous wife and jealousy was okay. But that turned out that he was getting death threats from all over the country. Then he had to leave Pakistan to go, I believe he came to the UK for a bit because he was unsafe. So you just can't have conversations. You have to really, really search for people who are willing to have such conversations. Otherwise, I wouldn't risk it.
Absolutely. And even on that Junaid Jamshed, I mean, he is someone who's a religious guy. I mean, he's not like he's a liberal. Sorry?
He's a preacher, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He's a preacher, and he's a very religious guy. He's someone who, you know, he for those people who don't know, he was like a pop star, you know, in his youth, a very successful pop star, and he saw the light, he became Muslim, he stopped playing music with the instruments in the background. He only does like religious music, naats and that kind of stuff. And some of them are pretty good, like Medina. Yeah. Anyway, let's not get into that. Yeah. But anyway, so he really, you know, changed his life for Islam. So when he was saying, I mean, he's quoting a hadith. Now, if you don't like the hadith, don't blame him. Blame the hadith. I don't understand that. If he's quoting a hadith, if you're angry at him, are you kind of secretly saying that you're angry at the Prophet, or you're angry at, I mean, what are you saying? But I mean, if he can't say that, then forget about liberals and apostates and progressives and all those kind of people, because they don't even come anywhere near. If Junaid, I mean, I remember seeing YouTube clip of him getting hit in the airport, physically assaulted. So I mean, that kind of environment I find so suppressive, which is a shame, because when I go back to Pakistan, I really enjoy my cousins, my family. There's so many things to see in Pakistan and to enjoy. But there's always this thing hovering over your head that you can't say the wrong thing to the wrong person, because you can get some very serious trouble. And your own personal Facebook page has been blocked in Facebook. Is that correct?
Yeah, my Facebook profile was blocked in all of Pakistan. It's a region block, which is done in collaboration with the government and Facebook authorities. So there's a little background to it. What had happened was I was applying for my passport recently online, and at the end there were a few questions that needed to be answered. They said that you have to say that the Qadianis or Ahmadis are not Muslim, that their Nabi Mirza Ghulam is an imposter. Muhammad, I swear that Muhammad is the last messenger ever. And if I didn't tick those boxes, I couldn't get my passport. It wouldn't let me go on the next page to get my passport. So I posted about that, and that post kind of went viral with more than 1,000 shares. And eventually somebody reported me to the authorities, and the Pakistan Telecommunication Authority eventually banned me across Pakistan. And then later on, I found out Facebook actually sent me a message explaining that too in my personal support inbox.
That is incredible. So you can't, I'm just shocked. So you can't even travel to Pakistan, is that correct?
No way. So for this to happen, a case was filed against me, and then it went through the board directors of PTA or whatever team. Like, the government knows about me. If I go back, they'll scan my passport. My name's going to pop up and they're going to arrest me at the airport, charge me under 295C, the blasphemy law. And I'll either get prosecuted by the government, and if not, I'll get lynched by a mob. I mean, it's not worth it. Just to give you an idea of how bad the situation is. So my classmates who are my friends, one of my classmates said that if you come back to Pakistan, I'll make sure I put a bullet through your head myself. The comment is, he commented on Abdullah Samir's interview with me. Then my own relatives, I'll just say one of my aunties, who's very educated, works in a multinational company. When she heard of it, she wanted at that time, my wife was pregnant. She wanted my unborn child to die. She said that she will take a knife and stab me herself. So, yeah, I don't even feel safe around my own family back home.
That is crazy. I honestly don't. I'm really sorry to hear that. That's
Yeah.
I'm genuinely blown away. I mean, such sort of violent sort of threats from very close family members.
Yeah.
I can understand other people saying, "Oh, he's an idiot. We're going to kill him." That's understandable. But when it comes from your own family, people who know you, who raised you, I mean, that's a completely different ballgame.
Like my neighbor in Pakistan, who's actually living in Canada too, and when I came out in public, he sent me a long message saying, "Dare you ever come back to Pakistan, we're going to rip your jaw open like an animal and punch all your teeth down your throat." And I was like, this guy literally lives like next to my house, and his mom was my school teacher. And I was just shocked.
That's incredible. That really is incredible. I just can't believe it. I mean, this is what we were talking about. How on earth can you have any sort of progress or any sort of conversation in that kind of country where these are the kind of threats coming from people who supposedly love you and know you and take care of you? I mean, it's not like you've come out and you're like a serial rapist or like a murderer. It's, "Oh, Abdullah, man, you really let the family down. You know, you're a rapist." No, you just change your mind. That's your crime.
Exactly.
Your crime is, I changed my mind on religion, not I've killed someone, or I bet you if you got done for corruption charges and all this sort of money laundering, you'd be like, "You know what, it's fine, don't worry about it, come back home."
Yeah.
That's fine. But if you got done for changing your religion, oh boy, that's a completely different story. So, I mean, maybe for people who aren't familiar, could you tell us why there is a such thing called a blasphemy law? What is the point of a blasphemy law?
The blasphemy law can be derived from Islamic scripture itself. It starts from when Muhammad was in Medina. A couple of poets wrote poems against him or satirized a few of his teachings, which pissed him off, and he ordered them to be killed. Now, when you read the stories themselves, they're kind of like almost Assassin's Creed. These Sahabas, the companions of Muhammad, go hiding in a castle, then they trick the guy to come down and they say, "Hey, I like your perfume." And he's like, "Yeah, come near me, I'll smell it." As soon as he comes near, they slash him up. And there's one, is like, this guy climbs the castle wall. There's nighttime, you can't see. There's a person and a baby laying there. He stabs everybody, then hides out in the castle to hear the screaming that, oh, who he'd kill is the right person. Muhammad killed a couple of singing girls in Mecca as well because they sang songs against him. So yeah, these originate in that sense. And in Pakistan, it's actually part of the criminal code. If you read section 295, especially 295C, it says that it's a mandatory death sentence for blasphemy or defamation of Islam or Muhammad. And there's quite a few names that come to mind recently, like Ayaz Nizami and a few other bloggers have been arrested over these charges. There's one person I know, I haven't mentioned his story before, but this was really shocking to him. He's very close to Ayaz Nizami. He was in Karachi. They raided his house. He ran away. They arrested his wife and his kids. He then had to illegally cross into Iran through Europe. Now he's somewhere in Northern Europe, and he's got asylum now, but his family is still under house arrest in Pakistan. So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, I'm honestly lost for words. I mean, this kind of stuff is savage. You would think these kind of laws would be maybe something that we could talk about. Oh, this happened 500 years ago. This happens 1,000 years ago, but it's happening now. People
Yeah.
are being, treated like criminals, like animals, because they say something that offends your prophet. I mean, this is complete nonsense, and
Yeah.
something which I take very seriously as someone who makes satire, who makes comedy videos, and makes fun of sheikhs or whatever it is. Anyone should be allowed to ridicule. You don't have
Yeah.
to like my ridicule, but that doesn't mean you have to kill me or you have to threaten me or that I should be put in prison. That is complete and utter nonsense. Just to change tracks, someone asked a question saying, does Abdullah miss anything about the Islamic lifestyle?
I mean, it did help me get very organized. Like, it kept me on time, on point. Like, I'll have a routine. But other than that, not much, because it was very restrictive. Like, you can't really listen to music. You can't go to certain places. You can't eat certain foods. You can't watch movies. Hell, the way I was for watching TV was haram because there's women without hijab on it. So
Absolutely, yeah.
it was very restrictive. Yeah, I wouldn't miss it too much.
You miss it too much. Some people have just commented saying that could you take some questions? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get sort of a background of Abdullah's story and some of his positions. But I'm definitely going to be taking questions from the comment section. So keep them coming, and I'll definitely try my best to answer all of them. If you could at me at Veedu, that way I can see the questions as opposed to just random comments. That would be great. Thank you very much. So. Okay, yes, it'd be not okay, fine, great. Let me just so I've got a question here saying, do you think leaving Islam and being public about it will be acceptable, at least to an extent, where you're not killed? Will it be accepted in the next 50 years? Thanks. What do you think about that?
I think the tides are moving really fast. The amount of ex-Muslims that I see now compared to 10 years ago, the change is drastic. There's a lot more people coming out, and I feel that the more of us that speak out openly, it's going to be much more safer for other people to come out. And I think the tides are definitely changing towards that side. That, I mean, certainly not in countries like Pakistan right now, but in North America, in Europe, in even some countries in the Middle East, it's becoming more easier for people to leave the religion as it was like maybe 10, 20 years ago.
Absolutely. Someone's asked a question saying, Veedu, can you ask, do extreme Brailvis have a lot of power in Pakistan influencing these extreme laws?
Yes, they do. There's quite a few organizations, like the recent issue in Pakistan is Tariq Labbaik Ya Rasulullah, which means the movement for the Prophet. So they edited a clause in the electoral bill saying that everybody who wants to run for the elections in Pakistan, be it Muslim or non-Muslim, does not need to swear that Muhammad was the last prophet, especially if they're non-Muslim, because they don't even believe that, right? This change triggered a violent reaction from the Brailwi community, the Sunni Tehreek and the Labbaik Ya Rasulullah movement. They staged a 20-day sit-in in the capital city. They threatened violence. They're saying, if you don't fire the law minister or hand him over to us, we will raid the parliament and whatnot. And there was thousands of them, like literally thousands of them. Just to give you another example, I think it was 2007, the case of Asiya Bibi. I don't know if you've heard about that. So she was accused of defaming the Quran, and she was charged, and she was being held in jail. And the governor of Punjab, the largest province in Pakistan, says that the blasphemy law needs to be, let's say, amended or changed a little bit. Just because of that, his own bodyguard emptied a whole AK magazine in him and killed him. That guy, Mr. Qadri, was hailed as a national hero, and I think more than 1 million, 2 million people showed up at his funeral. Like, he's apparently a national hero.
I mean, that's just completely and utterly disgusting, isn't it?
It's crazy. There's a lot of people that support these blasphemy laws in Pakistan, and I mean, then the more benign movement or the more nicer movement, I would say, is Dawat Islami. The guys who wear the green turbans,
Yeah, the
they're
parrots.
much more sweeter, much more calmer. They're still Barelvis, but I would prefer them over the other ones.
Right, fair enough. Someone has asked a question: would our guest prefer Pakistan be more like the West, i.e., foreign wars, consumerism, high divorce rates? That's a very strange way of
Yeah.
putting the question. I mean, there are so many things within the West, not just divorce rates and consumerism and foreign wars. But I mean, you're more than welcome to answer it however you want to.
I mean, taking Pakistan or West as a standard isn't the thing. Like, what West are you talking about? Are you talking about North America? Are you talking about Europe, like Sweden? You know, like if you look at Sweden or Finland or the Scandinavian countries, they're amazing. Like the crime rates are an all-time low. People are happy. They have freedom. Education is free. I would definitely say take the good, leave the bad. I mean, take as much of the good you can, implement in society, and leave out the bad.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. We've got a funny question here. When did you guys first hear about taqiyya? The word only meant pillow to me, which is taqiyya in the word in Urdu. Taqiyya means pillow. In Arabic, taqiyya means to deceive. I think it's like deceive or whatever it is. Like if the actual origin of taqiyya is when, for example, if you are a minority or if you fear that your life is in danger, you're allowed to lie and say I'm not a Muslim if it means you can, you can survive. Now that has taken on a whole different meaning. It means now people say, oh, Muslims are purposely lying because they want to deceive you. And trick non-Muslims into thinking that they're nice people, and when they get the chance to take over, they're going to take over. Now, I would be very suspicious of that sort of definition. I don't think every Muslim is doing that at all. I didn't even hear of the word until it was used by someone on TV. I was like, "What the hell's taqiyya? What the hell's taqiyya?" So, I mean, was this something that you that you heard of early on, or was it something that came out later on?
It came out later on, most frequently after I left Islam. Actually, just to clear it up, like the word taqiyya, the way it's taken nowadays by a lot of, let's say, ex-Muslims or anti-Muslim people, that Muslims are purposefully lying to deceive the West so they can take over. That's absolute nonsense. Like this concept of taqiyya does not exist in Islam. It was never, you can't find it in any scripture. The only thing you can find is if you're being held and your life is in danger, then you're allowed to lie about your religion if it will save your life, which I think is reasonable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course. So I've got a question here saying, which books would Abdullah recommend for us to read?
Well, you can start with maybe Christopher Hitchens' God is Not Great. It's a very gripping book. It's very well written. Language is very nice. If you're looking specifically for Islam, then the book Hassan Radwan translated, I believe it's called My Ordeal with the Quran. That's very good. You can, there's not too many books. Maybe you read The God Delusion. Yeah, like I myself haven't read The God Delusion yet.
Oh well, yeah. I even haven't read the Hitchens book that you spoke about, but I've heard it's great. So I actually need to get around to reading a lot of stuff. I've just been so busy recently, but I definitely will. Someone's asked here, have you ever received a death threat to your face? So not online, like, oh, I'm going to kill you, but like, so has someone ever approached you and said, I'm going to come and kill you, or I'm going to beat you up, or whatever?
No, not relating to religion, no.
So maybe you said not relating to religion, so maybe some others.
Yeah, well, nature of my job, like I was working law enforcement, so we deal with these gangster and these punks. So
right.
That was my.
So you can handle the gangsters. That's not a problem. You just can't handle the Brelvis. Honestly, some of the way the Brelvis act are honestly like thugs. I'm being when it is thuggish. That is a definition of a thug. They're using their own force and their manpower to intimidate people and to kill them, to threaten them, and then they celebrate and glorify a murderer.
Yeah.
What's more thuggish or
like
gangster than that, you know?
exactly, like, and then hold the whole country hostage for like 20 days by staging a sit-in in front of the parliament, is threatening that if you don't do this, then we'll raid the parliament and shut down the whole country and blah blah blah. I mean, yeah, that's just straight up fascism.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is great. This is a very interesting question here. Do you think there were atheists in the past during caliphates, sort of the caliphates of the past? I'm sure there were atheists. I'm
A
sure.
lot of closet atheists, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you take Kemal Atatürk from Turkey, I'm not sure about his religious beliefs, but he was almost an anti-theist from what I've read about him.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I mean,
definitely.
no, he saw that, you know, Islam and Turkey was holding the Turkish people back. So maybe he was a bit heavy-handed in what he did, but he secularized and anglicized a lot of the sort of things in Turkey with the language and the mosques and the dress code and this and that. But I mean, going back to in the old caliphates, like much before that, 100% they were atheists, and there were people who, you know, like, this is controversial, but a lot of people say, like, people like Umar Khayyam and those kind of people, they were, you know, either atheist or skeptic or whatever it was. But some people say that, oh no, they were Muslim, they were just using poetry, and I mean, there's so many. Sorry, yeah, or whatever. I mean, the Mu'tazilites. I mean, the vast majority of Muslims, mainstream Islam doesn't even recognize these people as Muslims.
Yeah.
So I suppose they were atheists in some sense. So if you wanted to take it like that, it's completely up to you. So someone is saying, why do we? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, okay, fine. So someone's asked, what are your attitudes? What are the attitudes of ex-Muslims towards practicing Muslims individuals they meet? Do they have prejudices towards them due to their bad experiences?
No, not at all. Actually, most of the people I know, like from my friends that were Muslims, they're very nice people. Like most of them pray 5 times a day. You know, they have jobs, they live amongst us. I see them as victims of Islam. I don't treat them with any prejudice or any hatred. I feel sorry for them at times because, you know, they're doing all this for, in my view, you know, for nothing. But most of them are very nice, like especially in the West.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Whenever I meet a Muslim, it's like my family is Muslim, my friends are Muslim. I don't think, oh, this guy's a Muslim, I'm not gonna like him. That doesn't even register to my mind. I mean, if I were to ask you, if you know, were to meet a Christian, how would you? It's like, I don't know. It's not even a question that comes up in my mind. I suppose if you've had bad experiences, then it's probably worth seeing someone to sort of talk to, and to sort of, maybe, I don't know, therapy is a way of dealing with these issues. If you've had someone like a lot of the bad experiences we have isn't necessarily down to maybe Islam. Like there could be family members who maybe are just abusive, and they abuse their position of power, and they're using Islam to do that. That happens all the time. But I've never even said, oh, that's a Muslim. I'm not. It's not even a question that comes into my head.
As long as you're a good person, you know, that's what matters.
Yeah, of course. And this is a very interesting question I've got here. Do you think Jinnah would be accepted in today's Pakistani society? So Muhammad Ali Jinnah, he was the founder of Pakistan, the first prime minister or president of Pakistan. I can't remember which one they have. But he was actually Ismaili, right? He was an Ismaili Shia. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And he was pretty secular.
Yeah, he was very secular.
And sorry, just one thing. This is one of those controversial things, but my family member was telling me that he used to drink alcohol.
Yeah.
But some Muslims don't want to accept that because it ruins their whole image that the founder of a Muslim country drank alcohol, was a secular Muslim, and didn't even speak Urdu.
I even heard that he was a chain smoker, and he used to smoke inside the masjid sometimes.
Mashallah. That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. Yeah. What do you think of Muhammad Ali Jinnah? Do you think the whole idea of a Muslim state?
I think the whole idea of a Muslim state, I'm not sure what his motivations were. If his motivations were just to save a people from persecution from the other religious groups, then I can buy it. But he was very secular. Like even his last speech he gave, he's like, you're a Pakistani, doesn't matter what religion you have equality and freedom to live the way you want. And in my opinion, a lot of average Pakistani people love him. They adore him. He's their idol. His pictures everywhere. But if you go in the religious circles, they don't like him as much. And just because his vision was of a secular Pakistan, and they call him a hypocrite actually at times, because they say that he used the idea of a caliphate, or let's say a Muslim theocracy, but was trying to build a secular nation. So
that's amazing. I've never thought about that. I mean, Jinnah is one of those people who, again, like you were saying, the average Pakistani loves him and adores him. But if you were to do a bit more research and a bit more digging, you would find out maybe he isn't. And I'm not trying to diss Jinnah or anything like that or praise him either. I'm just saying, as a historical figure, he isn't what the common man thinks he is. He isn't like this amazing religious person who, you know, was completely in tune with Allah and this and that. He was basically a British guy of Pakistani origin, because he he spoke English.
There,
yeah, exactly. He was basically a British guy of Pakistani Muslim origin, Shia Ismaili origin, if you really want to get into it. Because I know some Railways and all these guys, Sunni this and so. Okay, well, he wasn't even a Sunni. He wasn't even religious. He was secular. He used to drink alcohol. He was basically a British guy. He wore trousers and suit. He didn't wear shalwar kameez. And his picture is on every single wall or whatever in any government building or anything.
No beard.
Oh yeah, of course, no beard or anything like that.
Yeah.
And did he marry like a Parsi or something like that?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, his first wife was a Persian Parsi. Yeah, non-Muslim. Yeah.
Okay, so that just adds to the confusion of the guy that created the Muslim state, apparently for secular reasons, or if you ask some other people, apparently for Islamic reasons. This is such a confusion. It really, I mean, people like this in history are real sort of, I mean, googlies, or I mean, what do you make of someone like that? You know?
Yeah, I mean, we can never know for sure what his intentions were. You know, we can only speculate. But, like I said, you can find reasons for his decision to make countries separately. For Muslims, some people might argue, yeah, it's a good idea because of the persecution they're facing. But others might say it's just playing into the divide and rule policy, and that he was a British agent and he was helping the British divide and rule. So,
wow, that adds to the conspiracy. That is another layer of conspiracy. I didn't see that coming. Someone has asked, what was the first thing you did when you arrived in America?
Well, in Canada, I mean, getting outside of the airport, I drove around Toronto, looked around, and I got on a plane to wherever I was going. And yeah, I mean, I didn't eat pork. I didn't drink. I was a virgin until I was 21. So yeah, I was a very strict religious guy. Like when you picture me, picture a Muslim wearing a thobe with a long beard, no mustache.
Of course,
that's the kind of guy I was. Yeah,
of course. So can I ask you, what was the first thing you did when you became ex-Muslim?
I loved eating pulled pork sandwiches.
Oh man, Abdullah, you're living the dream right now. Mashallah, you're living the dream. What can I say? You know, hell is worth risking for pulled pork sandwiches. That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Someone has said Jinnah's only daughter moved to India. I don't know much about Jinnah's daughter, wherever it is.
Yeah. I think his grandsons are still in India. Yeah.
Sorry? Oh, they're still there?
Yeah, grandchildren, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Oh, this is interesting. Abdullah Gondal, your name, Abdullah, means servant of Allah. Do you still believe in God? Are you spiritual?
I don't believe in a God. I'm an atheist. But in the sense, like, there could be a higher power. I just don't see enough reasons or any compelling evidence to believe in one yet. But then again, I can't disprove it either, you know, because it's an untestable, unverifiable, unfalsifiable claim. In terms of spirituality, I've recently gotten into a bit of meditation, especially mindfulness, and I've been reading about it. And it's actually very, very interesting, and it actually works. It helps me a lot. Helps you realize your your place in the universe, what consciousness is, how the idea of the self is an illusion. And yeah, in that sense, if you want to call it spirituality, that's as far as I'd go. I wouldn't attach it to any religion or any mysticism, like, hey, there's some like your consciousness goes as quantum energy and floats around after you die. I don't go into that stuff.
Fair enough. That's a very interesting point. I mean, I am also trying to get into meditation. I had Farhan Qureshi on the show a while back, and I believe Abdullah Samir uploaded one of his meditation techniques or sort of tutorials on his own channel. So check out Abdullah Samir's channel for Farhan Qureshi's meditation technique. I tried it, and honestly, I was buzzing. Maybe it's just his voice. I don't know. He's got a very soothing voice. So I was in a different world, but it's something which you're right. Even if you don't believe in God or whatever it is, or even if you're not religious, that doesn't mean you're not interested in exploring your own inner dimensions and trying to understand what makes you tick, trying to understand your place in the universe. I think that's still a very praiseworthy goal to pursue, regardless of whether you do it in religion or out of religion. I don't think that should make a difference. Absolutely. Someone has asked, what do you guys think of Tariq Ali? Do you think he is the foremost Pakistani atheist? Are you familiar with Tariq Ali?
I haven't even heard of his name. Sorry.
Okay, that's a good question. I wish I knew more about him. I do know who he is. He lives in the UK, and I think he's a lecturer. He's an atheist, but I think he's also like a communist or a socialist. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, that's an interesting point. Actually, he is an atheist, and we don't hear that much about him. And he's Pakistani. He's not British Pakistani. So maybe that's an interesting thing for me to sort of research in. But speaking about Zakir Naik, looking back on your time, when you thought he was like an amazing guy or whatever, what do you make of him now?
Most of his arguments are more about the show he puts on, and the verses he quotes at like a speed of a gun, like verse after verse. It's more about like the effect that has on people. But when you look into the arguments itself, like especially take like the argument, for example, the Big Bang in the Quran, right? It's verse 21, verse 30 of Surah 21 something, where he says that the verse basically says the heavens and the earth were joined together, then they were ripped apart. And he says that means refers to the Big Bang. But then at that time, I bought the argument. Okay, oh, subhanAllah. But now that I think about it, the earth didn't exist at the time of the Big Bang, right? So you can easily debunk his arguments. Like he's more of like a showman now. And that's why you never actually see him debating a lot of people. He just does his own lectures, sings to the choir, stays in his bubble.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, when you're that young age and you're very impressionable, and someone says Islam and science, they're pretty much the same thing, and he's quoting verses and he's quoting out of science books, and you think, oh, but this, everything just sort of fits together like this. Everything makes sense. But afterwards, when you do some critical thinking, you realize actually, you know what, he's making some serious jumps in logic. And this argument doesn't really hold any weight. I think the whole Muslim this sort of dawah scene, I think a part of them is abandoning this whole scientific miracles in the Quran, because they realize that science is always changing, and you actually look really silly when you say, oh, this verse in the Quran refers to this thing in science, but when science changes, so now you've made that Quranic verse look wrong. This is what I was talking to Dr. Osama Hassan about. I can't remember exactly now, but I'm paraphrasing. Surah Yusuf, where he was saying, when that guy when he had a dream that there were 12 moons or 12 planets bowing down to him. Yeah. Obviously, that's talking about his brothers. But at one point in time, they thought there were 12 planets in the solar system. So exactly. So a lot of Muslims said, "Oh, look, this is what that verse is also referring to. That's a miracle in the Quran, because this verse is not only referring to the brothers, it's referring to the planets in our solar system, hence therefore a scientific proof. Now we realize there aren't 12 planets in the solar system, and in fact I believe Pluto isn't even a planet anymore. So this is the kind of nonsense you get into. You start falsifying your own verses because you are so eager to get on the science bandwagon that you falsely attribute your verses to scientific discoveries, whatever it is. But when those discoveries or understanding of those discoveries change, you look really silly. And I think, I mean, it's completely ridiculous when people start doing that. But yeah, how much time do you have? Because I know you had to go, but let me know so I can, you know,
for another half hour. That's fine.
Half an hour. Oh, that's great. That's great. Someone has asked, do you think the language we speak influences the way we think about religion? For example, concepts like atheism, agnosticism, deism in Urdu/Arabic is just blanket kafir.
Yeah, it can have a very negative connotation and leave a very negative impression of those concepts upon, let's say you're talking to a Muslim, right? You're like, oh, you know, like atheists, agnostics, they're all kafir. He'll immediately picture like these bad people who hate Allah, who hate them, who hate the messenger, are arrogant, or losers, deaf, dumb, and blind, and, you know, worse than animals and all sorts. So he will have that image, and that'll affect his perception of new concepts that these atheists or agnostics might talk about. So it creates a big bias in a believer's mind, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe just having the bit of nuance. Okay, fine, you're not a Muslim, but that doesn't mean if you're not a Muslim, everyone who isn't a Muslim thinks the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, you have sort of militant atheists who are like, no, there is definitely no God. Some people are like, I'm not really sure. Some people are like, you know, there's apatheist, which is I don't even care if there's a God. It doesn't make a difference. And I actually think I'm becoming more of an apatheist, not because I don't want to know, but because I was thinking about it a while back. I was at work, and there was this very religious Muslim guy in the office, and very nice guy, very nice. And he was talking about Ramadan and praying and this, that, and he said that, you know, for me, the number one priority in my life is my religion. Nothing else matters. You know, if I'm not fasting, if I'm not praying, if I'm not serving God, then everything else is irrelevant. And I was thinking, what if that same guy? I mean, this guy's got a wife and kids and whatever, and I'm sure he's a great father and a great husband. But are you telling me that if that guy tomorrow became an atheist, he wouldn't love his family, he wouldn't love his friends, he wouldn't do the same things that he loves doing? So for me, if you love your family, full stop, then you don't need God to tell you to love your family. And that's what I was thinking. Like, in a way, do I even need a God to tell me to like be a good person? Do I need a God to tell me don't kill your family members, don't steal from your, like, I don't need that. Do you get what I'm saying? So on some level, as much as I would love to know, is there a God, is there not a God, on some level it doesn't really make a difference, because my behavior is going to be my behavior. And even if there is a God, this is one thing I don't understand. What I haven't seen any solid proof or logic saying that God wants to be worshipped. I think human beings love to worship things or love to be worshipped, whether it's themselves or other people or books or ideas or states or heroes or mythology or fictional characters. We love to worship. Maybe it's part of the flaw within our system, right? We love to worship, but I don't know. I you know, bring me the mathematical proof saying God wants to worship you. All these people, Muslim, Christian, whoever, they say God created you, therefore He knows what's best for you. Where's the proof? Where's the proof in that? Where's the proof that He wants to be worshipped?
Yeah, like talking about worship actually always struck me very weird, because if you think about God being omnipotent, He doesn't need anything. Our worship doesn't make Him any greater, but then He demands worship to the extent that He says in the Quran that, hey, the purpose of me creating the jinns and mankind is nothing but to worship me. And then He also labels the biggest ever sin is either not to worship Allah or to worship another God besides Allah. And then He goes in His own book saying that everything in the heavens and the earth, the sun, the moon, the trees, the rocks even are prostrating and praising Allah, even birds, even inanimate objects, right? And then you kind of get confused, like, this is an omnipotent being. Why is He so obsessed with being worshipped when it doesn't affect Him?
I
And
think God's got very low self-esteem. He needs a. I mean, you might think I'm being a bit
yeah,
silly, but if I said to you, everyone, you have to like me. People who don't even know me, they have to like me. Things that aren't even breathing have to like me, and they have to. You'll be like, this guy, what? You seem a bit
yeah,
crazy. I mean, what are you on about? But if you were to attribute that to a god, all of a sudden, that makes sense.
yeah, exactly, right? I mean, talking about the meaning, the point you brought up earlier about the guy saying that there's no meaning without God. I don't want to live if there's no God and stuff like that. And Sam Harris made a good point about it. And he said, imagine your neighbor every Sunday morning, you see him digging in his backyard with his whole family. So one day you go up to him and he's like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm digging for this big diamond that's buried in this yard. And he's like, what proof do you have of this diamond being buried there? And he's like, oh, I read in a book that was written 1,000 years ago. You'll think the guy's losing his mind. And then the guy goes on to tell you that, hey, the only purpose in life for me is to find this diamond. In fact, I don't even want to live in a universe where I can't find this diamond. And then you realize how weird this thinking goes into.
Absolutely. No, I 100% agree with that. I think we're obsessed with this sort of idea of perfection and 100% absolute truth. And I don't know if the more research, the more thinking I do, I don't know if such a thing exists. This idea of perfection, communists call it utopia, this place where no one's poor, everyone's happy. Muslims have this sort of caliphate, whatever you want to call it. Brothers are, there's very little crime or no crime, and alhamdulillah, everything is in sync. Allah's happy with you, you're happy with Allah. I think the real world is not like that. The real world is all about making baby steps every 1,000 years or every 100 years. That's the real world, not this idea of perfection. If you look at these people who either preach perfection or states that preach perfection, they usually end up in destruction. Because no one can continue to keep holding this lie, and people realize very quickly that it's not true. Why is it in communist countries you always have ration lines, people waiting for food? If it was such an amazing country, where's the food gone? The basic thing that you need, where's it all gone?
Yeah.
In these in the more religious countries, you tend to get more laws, which means more crimes. Also silly laws, like blasphemy laws or this apostasy law. You can't do this, you can't do that. If it was such a religious country and everyone in it is so amazing, there shouldn't be, in theory, religious countries should have the least amount of laws because everyone's moral.
Yeah.
But they tend to have the most amount of laws or more amount of laws, which I find. Yeah, absolutely. And these fatwas are rolling, man. They keep coming. They're just printing more fatwas, and I find that completely ridiculous. But there you go. Someone's asked, what do you think about Muhammad marrying Aisha? Have you spoken to anyone about it? What do they say? Thanks.
With Muhammad marrying Aisha, there's two positions on this. One group says that they take the hadith mentioned Bukhari, Muslim as literal truths. And then there are other groups of Muslims that don't consider the hadith as true, and they don't even subscribe that she was a child at the age of like 6 or 9. They actually sometimes argue that she was 18, and then they go on about their argument. But if you strictly analyze Muhammad from a societal standpoint, marrying children, like it's wrong. But back in the day, it was not considered wrong. A lot of people did it. A lot of big leaders did it. I hate what they did. It's horrible what they did. But then again, you can also say that Muhammad was just doing what everybody did at the time, And then the only problem I have is when people say Muhammad is the best example for all times to come. That's when I criticize him, because no, he's not. And if you keep him as a normal human being who lived in 7th century Arabia and did things that 7th century Arabians did, some were good, some were bad, I have no issues with it. But when you make him as a prophet, as the best man to have ever lived for all of humanity, then you have an issue. And then when you ask a Muslim, like the people who support those hadith that she was 6 or 9. He's like, well, listen, Muhammad is, the most perfect man, and his sunnah is the best thing. And Allah says the best example is Muhammad in Surah 33, verse 21. Would you let your daughter marry, if she's 9 years old, a 55-year-old man in today's day and age? And they would instantly say no, because times are different. Then I'm like, exactly, that's the argument, because Muhammad was a man for a specific time. If you're living today and you yourself say that, no, you won't do this, what he did back in that day, that means you're admitting that morality is somehow subjective. So there's interesting ways to go about it, but I wouldn't call him or label him as a pedophile. Because even a lot of his companions that were older married women that were like 10 or 11. So it was more of a norm.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, this is the whole Aisha is such a controversial topic. When I was Muslim, I personally wanted to believe that she was 18, for obvious reasons, because I wasn't comfortable with the fact that my prophet was sleeping with a 9-year-old. But you know what, man, it's such a messy subject when you get into it.
Yeah.
I mean, not for the sex, whatever, but just the whole. She was 18, but Sunni people purposely put her age lower to make her look more pure, and there's so much politics, Sunni-Shia politics going on as well.
I mean, just the start of it, like if you look at the hadith literature, the whole story is so bizarre. So the hit goes that Muhammad saw an angel bring this little girl to him in a dream twice, and then told her that she is your wife. And then he looked at her, and it was Aisha, and she was dressed in robes. And at that time, she was 6 years old. So, I mean, it's disgusting to begin with. Like, and then Muhammad goes up to Abu Bakr and asks him, "Hey, can I marry your daughter?" And Abu Bakr even said, "But we're brothers in religion." And Muhammad just replies, "But I'm the messenger, and whatever Allah wills has to happen." So he kind of blackmailed him into marrying his daughter away at the age of 6.
I mean, that sounds very disturbing.
Even the hadith leading up to like how she was taken by Muhammad is disturbing. Like she's playing on the swings with her friends, and her mom comes, "Hey, come home," dresses her up, and then the prophet comes, this 50-year-old man. "Okay, 6-year-old girl, let's go to my house," and she's playing with dolls with her friends, even at his house. So
yeah. I mean, I actually read something. Again, it could be authentic, it could not be authentic. I don't know, but nevertheless, I found it very disturbing, saying that before Aisha was of age, i.e., before she had hit puberty, that the prophet practiced thighing on her. So this wasn't penetration, but it was to. I mean, I don't even want to say it. You use like this, the sort of back between your thighs, whatever it is. Who knows? Honestly, I don't know. So I'm not going to say, yeah, he definitely did it. But maybe that was put in retroactively to sort of justify. I mean, that happens all the time. Maybe that thing didn't happen, but people would insert these hadiths backwards to sort of make it out as if, it was cool, and they add a bit more text, add a bit more context to it, and a bit more meat to it to make it sound more real. Who knows? Yeah. Who knows? We've got so many questions here, so I'm going to try and get through as many as possible. Yeah. Someone has asked about Wahhabis. What do you think of Wahhabis? So I'm going to ask these two questions in one go. Do you think Muhammad is a warlord, and what do you make of Wahhabis?
Okay, so Muhammad's a warlord. Latter part of his life, definitely. He's a warlord who has succeeded and formed a religion. For the first 13 years, he was a pacifist. When he went to Medina, he changed completely. He started using a lot of force. He eventually beheaded like about between 600 and 900 Jews in the city of Medina. He allegedly, if you read his seerah, in the last 10 years of his life, he ordered about 60 war campaigns, 60, and took part in about 25 to 27. That's a war a month, okay? And if you pick up any hadith book, just open the book of jihad. It's one of the biggest chapters, and it's full of violence. It's full of wars. Most of his life is actually all about wars. He waged wars here, he waged wars there. he was kind of like Musaylama and all those other false prophets around him. They had similar messages. The only difference was Muhammad succeeded, they didn't. If Muhammad would have been defeated by Musaylama, we would have been living with a religion propagated by Musaylama instead. So, like you see Muhammad, launch campaigns, send armies to cities, and then just say that, hey, surround the city, give them three options. You either accept Islam, you pay jizya, or we fight, he would send delegations, like armies. Like one incident that comes to mind is Dhul Khalasa. Like there's this remote area, I think in southern part of Arabia, and they had a Kaaba, like their own Kaaba with idols in it. And Muhammad just sent an army there, and they just killed everybody there. They broke that Kaaba and they broke the idols. And these people weren't bothering Muhammad or anything. And then Muhammad prayed and praised for the soldiers that killed the people and destroyed their Kaaba. There is a lot of material that you can use to justify that, yes, Muhammad was a warlord. He was a delusional person who believed his delusions and used violence to propagate it.
Fair enough. And what do you make of Wahhabis?
Wahhabis are, to me, the most literalist interpretation of Islam. They follow the scripture the way it was meant to be followed by Muhammad, his companions, and the first, I believe, 2 generations after the companions, called the Salaf Salihin. So they want to create a world as close to 7th century Arabia, or at least society that's governed by laws, propagate Muhammad, to the most literalist sense. And I think they are the most dangerous ones, because they implement stuff like hand choppings, literally stonings. They reenact them, and they're an like, for example, ISIS is an offshoot of Salafism or Wahhabism. Even Sheikh Adil Kalbani, he's the Imam of the Kaaba, admits that on TV. And I think Wahhabism is the more dangerous one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of the problems in the Muslim world right now, anyway, at least for the last 2 centuries, Wahhabis have got a lot to do with that. Yeah. With their very sort of, like you said, rigid interpretation, literalist interpretation, completely devoid of any sort of context. Even normal Muslims will be like, okay, guys, there's some sort of context. No, but we want to recreate that time. So absolutely. Someone is saying, is internet halal? Yeah. Only for dawah purposes, brother. Only for dawah purposes.
No hijabi YouTubers.
Oh yes, please, sisters out there, if you are a hijabi YouTuber, please either wear niqab with no makeup, and don't come on YouTube. Even your voice is awra. If you're gonna speak, please make sure you're not seductive. That you say, "Hi guys, how you doing?" That's too seductive for us. We can't handle that. So please make sure you lower your voice and you wear niqab. Absolutely. Someone is saying, does Veedu speak Urdu? I know he should be decent at Punjabi. My Urdu and Punjabi aren't that great, but I can understand most of it. It's sort of Hanji Tiko, Hanji Samlikum, all that kind of stuff. You know when you go into sort of family, go Samlikum Tiko, Hama Tiko, school kaise beta, all that kind of stuff. All that sort of stuff, yeah. Hanji Auntie Matiko, all that sort of stuff. Someone has said, what is Abdullah's thoughts on Javed Ghamidi?
I think he's a refreshing view. Like, I always support reformists, either they be Javed Ghamidi, Mufti Abu Lais, or Majid Nawaz, or Sheikh Osama Hassan. Because these are the people that we should consider they're almost on the same page as us. They want a society that is not governed by religion and is not the way Wahhabis portray Islam to be. So I'd always take a more benign, a more modern, more tolerant version of Islam over, let's say, Salafism or Barelvism or Deobandis, So I totally support them, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got a very positive opinion of Javed Ahmed Ghamidi. I think he's a very rational, cool-headed kind of person, and I think unfortunately he is in self-exile in Malaysia or Indonesia. I can't remember, but I think he was receiving some sort of death threats, or it was very dangerous for him.
He's been
So
takfired.
he, sorry.
He's been takfired in Pakistan a lot of times. Like I've heard khutbas in Pakistan against him.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
I mean, he's a devout Muslim, and even as a devout Muslim, you get a lot of stick and a lot of threats if you don't believe in the right type of Islam. So forget about ex-Muslims and apostates or whatever. I mean, even Muslims are having a hard time in Pakistan. Someone has asked me, do you celebrate Christmas in the sense of getting presents and possibly a Christmas tree? I'll put that question to you first, and I'll answer that afterwards.
I mean, I celebrate Christmas. I celebrate Eid. I celebrate all festivals that are good. You know, who doesn't want to have fun with family? So it's fine with me as long as nobody's being harmed.
Exactly. I mean, if there's food and there's presents,
Yeah.
I'm there. Honestly, if a flat Earth religion were to come about and they said we're having our flat Earth Christmas or flat Earth Eid, I'd be like, I'm there. As long as there's food, whatever it is. They'll probably serve pancakes because they're. I'm just joking. Anyway,
Pancakes.
yeah. There'll be no circular objects, no spherical objects, no meatballs or gulab jamun or whatever, just pancakes. But yeah. Presents, yes. Tree, not in my house, but in my wife. She's a bit more English than me. My family's very Pakistani. So for Christmas, we'll have Asian food. I mean, or we'll have turkey with curry spices on top of it. That's our way of having Christmas.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll get a tree or whatever it is. I would like to know what Abdullah thought about the Kaaba and Hajj when he was Muslim. Did you ever go on Hajj?
No, I haven't. But my dad, he's a pilot, so he literally goes there like every week and does an Umrah. So
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
He's collecting those points, man. I'm telling you,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
collecting he's gonna cash out big time. I'm
Yeah.
telling you. I mean, did you ever want to go on Hajj?
Yeah, when I was Muslim, it was a dream. Like I want to go see the house of Allah, and go circle around it, throw some pebbles at the three pillars, shave my head. It was all like, it's like the dream come true. But now that I
Yeah.
look back at it, it's just paganism to me. It's just old religious rituals that make no sense. Like going around a box 7 times, why do that? Or why kiss a black meteorite?
Yeah.
We found out now it's a meteorite, but the Arabs back in the day didn't know. They're like, oh, it's a black rock. It must be from heaven. And then kiss a black rock. Then, run between 2 mountains because Abraham's wife was looking for water. Then go throw 7 pebbles each, so a total of 21 at 3 pillars, symbolically reenacting that Abraham stoned Satan. Then shave your head off, slaughter a cow, and
That does sound very pagan, actually, when you put it like that. I've never thought about it like that before, but that does sound very pagan, doesn't it? Very sort of ritualistic.
Yeah.
Animal sacrifice and symbolic stone throwing and circling and
kissing stones and running between mountains.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I never thought about it like that. I've got so many questions here for you, Abdullah. Someone's asking, what do you make of cousin marriages? What do you make of ISIS? And what do you make of Buddhism? There, cousin marriages, ISIS, Buddhism. That's a great that's a great collection of questions.
So cousin marriages are like genetically known to carry or create offspring with a lot of issues, and it's a known thing. And I wouldn't propagate it. I'm against it. I mean, I know quite a few people because in Pakistan, your first choice to marry is your first cousin. And I know a lot of families that have kids that are born defective, kids that have a hole in their heart or have some other disability. So
Can I ask? I mean, for people who maybe are not Pakistani or familiar with the culture in Pakistan, why do we go for the first cousin? Why? I mean, in Pakistan there are 200 million people. Yet our first choice is you see that I just don't understand. Why would you go for your cousin as the first choice?
In Pakistan, when you get married, you're not just marrying the person, you're marrying their whole family. And the way family politics works is you if you marry your first cousin, it's easier to get along because your auntie is your mother-in-law. You already knew her, so it saves a lot of money, a lot of guests on the invites, and
Oh my god! So you're saying the root of the cousin marriage is that we don't have to invite that many people to weddings. We can just sort of, it's basically the same house,
yeah,
the same people. I mean, yeah.
it's just easier.
It's just easier. Yeah, of course. Wow. So that's cousin marriages. Yeah, I don't agree with. I'm not in favor of it. Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Buddhism.
I haven't really studied Buddhism in a lot of detail, but what I have heard is it's more about meditation and being nice to people or creating good energy around you. And I mean, I love meditation, so I don't mind that part. But then again, I've seen what's happening in Burma, and that's kind of okay, that's like complete genocide. But I don't think that has to do with the ideology of Buddhism itself. It's more of a political thing. But in general, I'm neutral on it.
Fair enough. ISIS.
Oh boy. ISIS is not 100% representation of Islam. Get the first thing out of the way. They do a lot of things that they claim that you can derive from scripture. Yes, they do a lot of things that they can find in scriptures and what Muhammad did. If you see a ISIS hand chopping video, Muhammad did that. If you see a stoning video, yes, that's how it's described in the Hadith. If you see gays being thrown off of rooftops, yes, that's the point of view of a few companions of Muhammad. So they do a lot of things that can be justified from scripture, even offensive jihad for once, destroying idols and stuff. But not everything they do, for example, suicide bombings or child soldiers, they're not Islamic in that sense.
Yeah, fair enough. I've got a question here about what are the Pakistani views on Israel, not just the Palestine conflict, but the whole Jewish state idea, so on. And I've also got a question on what do you think of Mufti Abu Layth? So let's go with the easy one. Let's go with Mufti Abu Layth, and then we'll go on to the Yehudis.
I love Mufti Abu Layth. I mean, he's doing a very, very good job using rationalism and just using his common sense to call out the weird stories and the weird ideas that have crept into Islam. He's a refreshing scholar, a very new perspective. He's causing a lot of drama in the community, though. But as a reformist, I support him fully for what he's doing because we need people like us or like him who can tackle this mullah culture that has kind of taken over the narrative of Islam.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what he's doing is challenging a lot of Muslims who are in this sort of very deeply entrenched old school way of thinking. Like you said, this mullah thing, and whether it's the Salafis or the Brelvis, both sides of the coin have a problem with him because he is an independent thinker. He is not part of any sect, which is why they have a hard time dealing with him. Because when they say, "Oh, but Salafis don't think like this," he's like, "I'm not Salafi." "Oh, but the Sufis don't think like this." "Well, I'm not Sufi." So they can't play this game with him and say, "Well, Sheikh so and so said this." He's like, "Yeah, he said it, but that doesn't mean I have to agree with him. I can think for myself." And that is why he is so interesting for me. So a real genuine free thinker, because he's not tied down to any sheikh or to any school or to any whatever madrasa or whatever you want to call it. And that's what you need. That's what you need. You need people to think on their feet and to think for themselves. And that's how you're going to get any reform or progress or whatever it is. And he does it actually through his own traditional sources. So some people are like modernists or whatever. He says that he goes through the traditional Islam, which is fine, even better. Better. If you can find a way to say what you want to say through the old scriptures, through the old texts, great. I'm 100% behind you. So what there was, oh, the Jews. That's the next question. The old Yehudis. What do you could you tell us, for people who are not familiar with Pakistani politics or culture, what Pakistanis in general think of Israel or the Jews?
Okay, so if you open any Pakistani passport and you turn to the second page, it will say really clearly that this passport is valid for every country except the nation of Israel. Pakistan does not recognize the state of Israel. And yep, the average Pakistani thinks that all the Yehudis, all the Jews are out against Islam, like Yehudi agents, and there's this big Illuminati thing going on. And then the Dajjal is going to come and he's going to be their prophet, and Israel is going to be the state of Dajjal. So yes, there are those ideas that float around.
Yeah, I find that there's so many conspiracy theories, so many outlandish conspiracy theories about Jews and whatever it is. And how many Pakistanis have actually met a Jew? How many of them have even read anything about Judaism? And yet they seem to have such strong opinions about the Jews. It's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. That's not to say I agree with everything Israel does, but I mean, I don't agree with anything that any country does 100%. So, yeah. I mean, Israel for me is just like any other country. It's got bad stuff. It's got good stuff. But you know, I don't want to open this can of worms to Israel because of Palestine. Because for me, it's a lose-lose situation. It's such a long debate. You're not going to make any progress. I'm gonna, you know, as much as I don't agree with what Israel does or whatever it is, or like with its settlements, I find that there's been a disproportionate response from Muslims when it comes to Israel. But when, for example, when Pakistan kills people, or Saudi or Iran or any other Muslim country were to kill its own citizens or other citizens, you know, ethnic minorities, religious minorities, the difference between that and Israel is huge. The response is huge, and that's what I find most annoying about that, you know, the whole situation. But yeah, I mean, calling someone a Jew in Pakistan is like an insult, isn't it? And remember when they were calling Imran Khan, the Pakistani politician and ex-cricketer, you know, his first wife was a Jew or of Jewish descent, and they used to call him Yehudi ka bacha, you know, son of a Jew. And that was just like, I mean, I was watching a Pakistani TV show, and someone from his party, Imran Khan's party, was on, and they were debating whatever it was, and then the other guy called, "Oh, you're a, you know, you guys are bought by the Jews. You're Yehudi ka bacha," and it was just like you wouldn't dare say something about that in like UK or US. Oh, he's the son of a Jew, son of a Jew. But over there, it was like no big deal, and he kept saying it again and again and again. And I was laughing. I'm like, "Is this real?"
I mean, it's a lot of it's inspired from like religion itself. I mean, if you open the Quran, the Jews aren't mentioned in a good light at all. I mean, Allah was turning them into monkeys and pigs, and then he calls them donkeys, all sorts of names, tells Muslims not to befriend any Christians or Jews. They're always working against the Muslims. And then Muhammad's life itself, right, especially in Medina, you can see he did not like Jews. He expelled 3 tribes, literally murdered a whole tribe. The third one, Banu Qurayza, beheaded about 600 to 900 Jews, and then attacked Khaybar, you know, took them as slaves. So the history of these religions hasn't settled down well with the believers, and that plays a huge part in this idea of calling somebody Jew as an insult, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. I 100% agree with you. Someone has asked, since Abdullah has become a parent, what are his opinions on parenting and religion? Will he teach his kids about Islam or atheism, or allow him to decide on his own as he grows up? So this is actually a very good question, actually. I mean, I get this asked by my mother as well. And okay, fine, you don't believe in Islam, so what are you going to tell your kids?
I'm going to teach my kid everything. Like, I'm going to teach him Islam. I'm going to teach him Christianity, Judaism. You know, he should, and about atheism. You know, he should know everything. And I won't force any ideology upon him. And when he grows up, he can decide on his own. You know, like if he's like 15 or 20, like whatever he wants to be. And I think that's very, very important, because religions or this world wouldn't be the same if you would stop indoctrinate children with religion, you know? Like, why label a child as a Jewish child or a Muslim child when they're 2 or 3 and they can't even understand the complexity of those religions, you know? Uh, Richard Dawkins, I believe, made a point saying that when there is elections in your country, right? You don't see parents labeling their kids, oh, this is a liberal kid, oh, that's a Democrat kid, you know, this kid is from this political party. Because it'd be ludicrous, because the kids don't understand what politics is, right? So it's the same with religion, because religion is a very complex and deep topic, and kids shouldn't be indoctrinated into it because they just don't understand it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Teach them everything, give them the critical thinking skills, and let them make up their own mind. And if they change their opinion throughout the years, that's great, because that's the whole point. You know, you shouldn't be, you shouldn't have the same opinions as now as you were 16. Otherwise, you've wasted a lot of your life thinking the same way. Someone has asked about Balochistan. What do you make of what's going on there?
Well, I'll just give you a brief summary. The thing is, Balochistan is the heart of natural resources for Pakistan. Like, all of our, most of our natural gas comes from there. Coal reserves are there. There's big gold reserves, copper reserves there. And it's the largest province by the area. But the population and the life standard and the government really neglects that part of Pakistan. And Balochi people are pissed because they know without their natural gas and without their natural resources, Pakistan would be struggling. And they're always not happy that the government neglects them so much. So they have begun this separatist movement, and they want to separate from Pakistan and make their own country.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't actually know too much about the situation in Balochistan, so I'll leave it at that. Someone asked a very good question here, saying, why only look at the peripherals of Islam and agree with everything the Westerners say, and then you look and then you think you somehow know it all when it comes to Islam and Europe? Nazi killed Jews, not Muslims. Actually, you know what? I don't understand what that question says.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. That wasn't a great. Maybe if you could clarify that question, I'll ask it again. How are we doing for time, Abdullah?
We can go on for about a little bit more if you're okay with that.
I'm completely okay with that. As long as you're okay, we can keep going.
I'm enjoying the question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really enjoying this as well. I mean, someone's asked, what is Abdullah's views on the China-Pakistan relationship?
I mean, China is helping Pakistan out a lot. I mean, they've helped them technologically create their own fighter jet, JF-17. They're making this thing called the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Basically, what it is, for example, an oil tanker, when it leaves from the Middle East to get to China, it takes about 20 days because it has to go all around Pakistan, India, and then get to China by Japan. Now, what China is doing now is they're making a highway at Gwadar, that's a port in Pakistan, very close to the Middle East. And what they want to do is they want to take all their goods, land it there, and drive them straight to China through the Karakoram Highway, which will save them a lot of money and time. And that's why China is very interested in Pakistan, because it helps them economically.
Yeah, absolutely. And someone's asked, is Kashmir Pakistani or Indian? I mean, this is such a, sort of Palestine-Israel question. I mean, whatever. I don't know. I mean, what do you make of the whole Kashmir situation?
I mean, if the rule when the two countries separated was that if the population of one area is majority Muslim, it should go to Pakistan, then they should have followed the rule. But apparently with Kashmir was that the ruler of the area was a non-Muslim, and it was kind of like a private property thing, and he just gave it to India. So that's where the whole conflict started. So
is it really not not Pakistan?
I mean, the Kashmiri people really want to be with Pakistan from what I've heard so far and what I've seen. But then again, I believe Kashmir has their own prime minister and stuff too. So some of them actually just want a separate country because they're just tired of both countries pulling at it, you know? It's like a tug of war.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What is the fastest? Sorry, I think someone said Islam is only the fastest growing religion because of birth rates. I mean, what do you make of this whole Islam is a fastest growing religion, fastest growing religion? Do you think it's simply because of birth rates or because of conversions?
I think it's definitely birth rates. I mean, I was looking at Pew Research surveys, and that told the same thing, that it's not growing because of conversions. In fact, as many people convert to Islam, as many people leave Islam. And the way it's increasing is by birth rates, for sure.
Well, there you go. There's your answer. So someone said, "How is racism in the USA?"
I'm not in the States. I'm actually in Canada, and like I said, I don't really experience racism here at all. Like Canada is such a diverse country. Like it almost seems like you're in a pod of people from everywhere. You know, there's times where you'll be in a part of the city and you'll be like, "Wait, am I in China?" And then there'll be times you'll be like, "Am I in Pakistan?" You see people from every walk of life, and they're very loving, very caring. So I haven't experienced it yet out in public, but when I'm at work, I have. Because I mean, you know, they're like, "Hey, why are you arresting me? You know, you packy this, packy that," because people are agitated. But in general, no, it's not racist. For the States, I mean, it's a total different story with Mr. Donald Trump, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I think you need to. Racism is probably a bit lower in your priority, considering you've left Islam. I think that's a bigger issue for you than. So I mean, I would happily someone call me Paki as long as they don't kill me. I'm completely cool with that. But this is what I find interesting. People will say, "Oh, racism in the USA." Okay, there is racism everywhere in the world. If you want to talk about the racism in the Middle East, talk about the racism in the Muslim countries, and that's racism. We haven't even spoken about the sexism, the homophobia, the treatment of people who leave Islam,
or Ahmadis, or Christians in Muslim countries.
Of course. So. Yeah, I'm not defending racism or whatever it is. Of course not. I don't really care about that kind of stuff. I don't care what race someone is. But come on, guys, come on. I mean, if you want to point out, racism in the USA, then let's look at the racism in Pakistan with different sort of ethnicities, linguistic groups, or Shia, Sunni, ex-Muslim, apostate, whatever you want to call it. What are Abdullah's views on the Ahmadi persecution within Pakistan?
I strongly condemn it. Like, it's really, really bad. It's so bad. Like, they'll blow up their mosques. They're not even allowed to build mosques. They can't pray in public. They can't get jobs if they openly identify as Ahmadis. In fact, like a few months ago, when I posted about my passport not being able to be renewed if I didn't say and agree to the statement that the Qadianis are false and their prophet is an imposter. Few weeks after that, the government, the Supreme Court of Pakistan, ordered a list of all the people who have left Islam and mentioned the change on their ID documents, and ordered a list of all the Ahmadi people that identify as such, because most don't even identify as Ahmadi out of fear. But the Supreme Court ordered a list that there should be a national database of all the Ahmadis. They should know where they are, even if they're living abroad. And then NADRA, the organization that gives you the ID cards and stuff, and it's the database, they were banned from letting Muslims change their religion on their national ID cards. So that is how bad it is.
That's incredible.
It's
really,
really bad for Ahmadis in Pakistan.
That's terrible. That is really, really bad. I mean, someone asked me, am I an Ahmadi ex-Muslim? No, I was a Sunni ex-Muslim. You're sort of normal Pakistani Sunni, whatever. I'm not Ahmadi or anything like that. But yeah, the treatment of the Ahmadis there is terrible. Why should the government have to know what religion you belong to? Why is it their business? I find that outrageous, if I'm completely honest with you, especially given the fact that Ahmadis and religious minorities receive terrible treatment in those types of countries. The last thing you would want to do is to tell them, oh, I belong to a religious minority, and this is where I live, and this is my family. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Did you experience any sort of, or see any Sunni-Shia conflict or tension within Pakistan when you were there?
Yes, actually, it's more apparent in villages. And my dad told me that there is a Sunni mosque and a Shia mosque in the same village, and every Friday prayer, people from both the mosques will go cut off the electricity wires for the one mosque, so people can't hear the khutbas. I have seen quite a few bombings on processions being led by Shias, on in Muharram when they're, self-flagellating and stuff like that. Their mosques have been bombed as well a few times.
Yeah, that's terrible. I mean, someone's asked, what is the Pakistani perception of the Taliban? What do people think of the Taliban? And also someone's asked, how much alcohol is consumed in secret in Pakistan?
Let's start with the alcohol question. I mean, there is a lot of alcohol being consumed in secret. I remember the city I lived in, there's a whole factory, it's a famous company called Murray Brewery. They make alcohol, they sell it. Technically, it's illegal, but there's a lot of places you can buy it. And you can import it and whatnot. There's a lot of parties in the cities as well. As for the Taliban, generally there's a very, very bad perception in the central Pakistan and southern Pakistan. But in the northwestern Pakistan, Taliban are seen as kind of freedom fighters. That's how their forces grew. The really northwest tribal areas. Because, the U.S. is bombing and killing people from their drones, and the family members get agitated, and then Taliban are like, oh, we're fighting against the U.S., so people join the Taliban like that there. But generally, no, people in Pakistan don't like the Taliban or any terrorist organization, especially after that, the thing they did at the school in Peshawar when they killed about 150 kids. That was just tragic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was a really dark day for Pakistan and for the world. I mean, 70 odd, I think it was young children, completely slaughtered and helpless in that situation. Do you think that was one of the sort of turning points where a lot of people who were on the fence about the Taliban, that pushed them and said, okay, this is completely unacceptable? And that's where they lost a lot of support.
Well, I mean, before that, even Taliban had done so much damage to Pakistan with bombings, like bombing the Marriott Hotel, and I mean, bombing the army headquarters and whatnot. That majority of the people didn't like them beforehand, but yeah, this was just, going way beyond any sanity. Like, this was just too cruel, and that reinforced the hatred Pakistanis have for the Taliban.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick point. Some people have said that they did not receive a notification about this live stream. If you go onto my YouTube page and click the bell notification above subscribe, you will be notified every time I do a live stream or any video. And I actually make these live streams in advance. So I actually create an event maybe like a day or two beforehand to give people the opportunity to get ready for it. I don't just do them randomly live. So if you do that, you'll know about that. Someone was asking about which non-Muslim countries do Pakistanis like the most, and another question is, how has Abdullah's interaction been with celebrity Dawa guys like Ali Dawa and him being harassed by John Fontaine?
Well, let's start with John Fontaine. I was always cordial and respectful towards John, but he always came back with these one-liners, calling me this atheist with no morals. And there's this, I'll just give you one example. A picture on my Instagram where I'm sitting with a puppy in my arms, and he comments on the picture saying that the atheist has already started with the bestiality. So, I mean, and John Fontaine is a poster guy for the Dawa guys, and he's been
Who's John? I've never heard this guy, John Fontaine.
he's pretty famous in Pakistan and the Dawa scene. He makes a lot of videos too. He was on Huda TV for a while, hosting shows. He called me a barking dog, all sorts of insults. I mean, I don't want to get into the details. With Ali Dawa, he hasn't called me any names, but all he says is probably I was never an ex-Muslim to begin with. Same thing happened.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, if you try to talk to him, he mostly doesn't even understand the arguments, and he just sings to the choir, goes on his own. I don't think he's the person I want to have a dialogue with, honestly, because I don't think it's going to go anywhere, especially seeing his history with Tommy and the debate outside the courthouse, was it?
Yeah.
It's just going to be a lot of back and forth yelling. In fact, if I want to have a discussion with somebody, it would be Muhammad Hijab. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's a much more nuanced, much more intellectual guy, very calm, doesn't yell like Ali. We'll love to talk with him. Hamza Sources is one too. But yeah, I mean, generally it's not that productive with them because they're already on the back foot and they're defensive, and they're already having a hard time defending, moon being split in half and a flying horse that took Muhammad to heaven, and Allah sending thunderbolts to kill people of Moses. So they're already defensive. So calling them out is, you're touching a nerve. They get angry pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of point scoring within these sort of debates and not a lot of honest conversations. I mean, even when I was speaking to Dr. Osama Hassan, a lot of people, and they may have a point, but they were saying, why aren't you calling him out? Why aren't you pushing him more? And I thought this is an opportunity for maybe people who are not familiar with Dr. Osama Hassan to understand his opinion. He's a devout Muslim. Yeah. Nothing I say is going to change his mind like that. But I'm interested in having a conversation, in just opening the door so people can go both ways and just sort of get a better understanding of each other. But when you get into these Dawah discussions or Dawah debates, it's all about, I'll be to this, I'll be to that, I'll be this, that. And it's just about point scoring and trying to sort of this table tennis ping pong sort of approach. And I don't know how productive those sort of situations are, to be completely honest with you. Someone's asked, what do you think, what do you make of the thesis that Petra, that's in Jordan, was the original place of worship and the Black Stone?
I haven't actually heard about that much. I've heard that history of the Black Stone was related to the moon god called Hubal. But then again, I'm not too well versed with the thesis with Petra, so I don't think I'm qualified to answer that.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I actually heard a different theory saying that Muhammad actually got his stories from Palestine because that's where the Jews were, that's where the Christians were, and a lot of these stories are very similar to those in the Bible and in the Old Testament. This is the story I heard. I mean, this is from Tom Holland. He's a historian, and he's written a book on this, and it's a very interesting thesis. But yeah, I mean, it's something which I would love to go into more detail. I think we've answered that question about Ali Dawa. So someone's asking here. Sorry, hang on. Do you think Tommy is racist?
Yeah. I think he's bigoted as well. I mean, he has said some stuff about, he generalizes Muslims a lot. So I see that he makes good points at times, but as a general rule of thumb, yeah, he's a bigot. So,
sorry. Yeah. For me, Tommy, I would say in the early days, I really didn't like Tommy Robinson because he was very aggressive, in your face. He wasn't interested in nuance. He's just like, yeah, all these guys are doing this, all of them, not just like, a few, all these guys, they all believe this, they're all doing the same thing. It's like, whoa, man, like, where the hell did you come from? Whatever it is, like, I didn't really get his perspective. But when I listened to his, he gave a speech in Oxford University, And this is where he spoke about his background. And I actually got a better understanding of Tommy then. I can't say I agree with him on everything. I don't. But I got a better understanding. And the place he grew up in, Luton, I don't know if you know about that, Luton in the UK.
Yeah.
It's not a great place. It's sort of a mix between working class white people and working class very Pakistani people. So not your modern Pakistani types, but you're sort of old school, very traditional, conservative Pakistani people. And there's a lot of crime, a lot of things that happen in Luton, you know. So coming from that background and seeing the things he saw, I can get why he maybe doesn't have a favorable opinion. Also because of the fact what's happening, you know, with this whole grooming gang stuff within the UK. I don't know if you're aware of that. When it comes to grooming gang crimes, Pakistani men are overrepresented. So not your normal rape, that's like mostly white people because that's the country. But when it comes to grooming gangs, there seems to be, you know, it's a strange way of saying it, but rather a speciality or a what do you want to call it? That's probably a strange way of saying it, but Pakistani men seem to be overrepresented within this sort of crime. And a lot of the police in the UK, they knew this, but they did not want to highlight it because they did not want to seem as if they were being racist. Because if they say these Pakistani men are responsible for all these crimes, people are going to say, oh, you're racist, you're just singling them out, but actually it was them. So there's a lot of complex things going on there, but I don't like his whole strategy of getting in people's faces, knocking on doors and that kind of stuff. I think you should be, you know, especially now that he's got many followers and he can actually have a positive impact. You need to be you have to be nuanced. Muslims are not the same. You have to do that because immediately you lose the moderate Muslim. You lose the Muslim who's just a normal guy, a normal girl. You lose them when you start using this kind of language. And language is important. Don't say, oh, you know what I mean. Okay, fine. Yes, you might mean something else, but you've been doing this for a long time now. Yeah, I mean, how many more sort of chances and excuses?
He needs to distinguish between. He needs to distinguish between when he's talking about, suppose, the Islam of ISIS and then the Sufi Muslims and the moderate Muslims. He needs to distinguish between people and ideas because he kind of convolutes both of them together at times. And he needs to be more sensitive about generalizing.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Someone's asked me what the name of the book by Tom Holland was. I think it is Under the Shadow of the Sword or something like that, something with the sword. So if you just type in Tom Holland Shadow of the Sword, or I think you'll get the book. How are we doing for time, Abdullah? I know we said 1 hour initially. It's nearly been 2 hours. Should we make it a nice 2-hour session with 7 minutes left? So guys, this is going to be the quick fire round. Abdullah Gondal is, you know, he's going to have a quick energy drink and he's going to go for He's going to go for 7 minutes, hyper speed. So, guys, get your questions in, and we'll finish. We'll wrap this up within around 7 minutes. I think that's a great way to wrap it up. Unless you want to go on for longer, I'm completely okay with that. Stop this taqiyya Veedu. Yes, sorry, I can't help myself. I might have left Islam, but Islam hasn't left me. I can't help to do that. So there you go. Favorite US state. Do you find it annoying that people keep thinking you're from the US when you're actually from Canada? That's the one question I have to ask you. It's like, so how was the USA? How was this in the USA? It's like, guys, I'm from Canada. Oh, okay. So in the USA, does this? It's like, I'm from Canada.
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever been to the US?
No, I haven't, and I don't think I can pick a state because I haven't been there.
Fair enough. I've actually been to the US a couple of times. I've been to Nevada, California, Chicago. It was ages ago, but I mostly remember my time in Las Vegas, Nevada, and Mesquite because my uncle was there. But now he's moved to California. But I really enjoyed America, and I went to Canada as well. I went to Vancouver, and I was in Vancouver. I was like, where are the white people? Everyone here is Chinese. I was like, there's literally no. I was like, everyone is Chinese. I'm like, what is this? But anyway, yeah, there you go. Ooh, this is a very hang on. this is a very sort of controversial question, but I'll ask it because someone's asked it. Do you think whites should have an ethno-state?
Whites?
Yeah.
I don't stand for any kind of race-based states. So no, definitely not.
Fair enough. That's moving on. We can get very controversial with that one. Hey, Pakistani student here, and I've got to say, they are filled with religious shit, mostly in all books. What do you make of that comment?
Pakistani books, yeah, a lot of them are full of religious stories, and their focus is basically creating an Islamic education system where you can effectively indoctrinate children. So, yeah, that's true.
Fair enough. Advice for ex-Muslims in the closet in the Middle East, female. So there's a female person in the Middle East. She's an ex-Muslim. What is your advice for her?
Your safety is your utmost priority. Don't come out of the closet if you feel you'll be hurt or your future, your career might be affected. Rather, just if you're young and you're still studying, stay in the closet, get your studies done, get your job, settle down. And then you feel comfortable enough that you're independent, then you can come out of the closet, or wait till you move out of said Muslim country in the Middle East to a more secular nation where your life is not under threat, then come out.
Fair enough. What do you think? Should Europe accept refugees?
I mean, they should accept refugees, but I'd say that have a more better way to scrutinize them, I guess, because a lot of the refugees are legitimate and genuine and they need help. But in the process of bringing all of them in, you will bring in a lot of bad sheep as well, I
agree. I really think that Europe needs to rethink its refugee policy. I mean, listen, I'm not racist. I'm a brown guy, whatever. I mean, if someone saw me in the street, they wouldn't say, "Oh, who's ex-Muslim?" They'll say, "Oh, he's a Muslim," whatever. I mean, you can't tell the difference between ex-Muslim and a Muslim. They look the same, right? Mm. But Europe, for all its people love to say, "Oh, but Europe caused the wars in the Middle East." What did Sweden do in the Middle East? What did Greece do in the Middle East? Yeah. Absolutely nothing. So, and even if they did, I don't agree with this sort of collective punishment because they did something wrong. Now we're going to punish the citizens who, citizens that don't have control of that kind of stuff, of the policies. Yeah. We're going to punish the citizens by importing loads of people who don't have the same culture, don't have the same values, don't have the same dreams or ambitions or the same respect for that society. You're going to say, come in and we'll cater towards you. And by the way, a lot of these guys aren't even refugees; they're migrants. So if you see, there's a lot of people who come in are just men. Where are the children? Where are the women? Yeah. If it was if it was a family thing, right? Families coming in, okay, fair enough, that's understandable. But if it's just men from the age of 18 upwards, it's like that's not refugees. Where are all the women? Where are all the children? So I really think listen. There are so many other places within the Muslim world these people can go to, right? Similar culture, religion, language, ethnicity, blah, 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 blah. Europe is the devil. Europe is kafir. But for some reason, we have to go there.
Yeah, to the same people who are apparently bombing.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, you know what? America is racist. Trump is racist. But I want to live in America.
Yeah, doesn't make sense.
Okay. Would you send a Jew to Nazi Germany? You wouldn't, right?
No.
Why would you send? If America is such a terrible place, why would you want to go live there? I just don't get it. Sorry, someone's asked me: is Veedu only taking questions from Patreon? No, I'm taking questions from everyone here on the live stream. If you want to get your question 100% answered, you can message me on Patreon or become a Patreon and then ask me whatever. But I'm taking questions from everywhere now, and we've got like a minute left. Sorry, I went on a bit of a rant there, guys. Sorry about that. I'm gonna get 2 or 3 questions in, and then we'll go from there. What is the biggest problem within Islam in its current form?
Its current form is we need a lot of education and a lot of exposure to other ideas and ideologies, and Muslims need to hear criticism of their religion. Islam has lived and survived and thrived in a very intellectually isolated manner so far, and education is key.
Yeah. Someone's asked you, what do Pakistanis think of evolution?
They don't even teach it at school at times. I mean, I remember I wasn't even taught evolution in my biology class. They either skip it, or even if they do teach it at school, the teacher will give you a warning before they start that this is what science teaches. We have to teach it because it's part of your syllabus and course, but we don't really believe this, so just do it for the studies.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so trigger warning, guys. Here we go. So, any more questions? I'm just looking at. Oh, so, that's any more questions? Any more questions? Just checking. Veedu, please talk to the lovely Junaya Vanessa English. I don't know who that is, but I'll Google her right now. But yeah, I'll do that for later. Okay, guys. I think we have a wrap. I think that's a wrap, guys. I really do. Unless you are happy to go on for a bit longer, but I think 2 hours is plenty of time. What do you think, Abdullah? I'll leave it to you. It's in your hands.
It was awesome being on the show. Really nice to take the questions. I really enjoyed that part. Kind of interacting with people. Before we wrap it up, I'll just give a few words of advice to Muslims if they're watching, and ex-Muslims if they're watching as well. That you need to understand that your version of the truth isn't the only truth, or it's not the only way to look at things. You got to start thinking out of the box. You got to start looking at criticism of your point of views or your religion, because if you are on the truth, then truth shall stand up to scrutiny, and it shall fear nothing. Secondly, whenever you interact with each other, it's better to stay away from name calling and stuff. Focus on intellectual discussions. And a general advice for ex-Muslims is, if you're living in countries like Pakistan or the Middle East where your life is threatened, don't try to be a hero and come out. It's not worth it. Wait till you have the opportunity. And one other thing is, start reading your scriptures with translations. You just don't read the Arabic part, every day and just call it a day. Actually read it. Actually read the Hadith literature, and you'll find a lot of things that will shock you.
Very, very wise words from Abdullah. I 100% agree. A lot of Muslims get into this habit of just read the Arabic and forget about the translation, forget about actually understanding it, and you get reward for reading the Arabic, and that's the end of that. So we just keep reading the Arabic again and again and again, and we don't know what we're saying. It's so strange. I mean, I wouldn't read something in Italian again and again and again and not understand what I'm saying. I think that's a bit kind of weird, but we do it in Arabic, and that's completely fine. So yeah, that's what I would say, guys. Everyone who's been on the show, thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys coming on and contributing and asking questions and taking part in the discussions. I also want to thank Abdullah again for coming on the show. He's a great guest. He said he would only be on for an hour, but he's on for 2 hours. So Abdullah, thank you very much for giving your time. I really appreciate that. And of course, great advice right at the end. Guys, I will be doing more live streams in the future. So if you want to know when I'm doing them, please subscribe. And please click the notification bell on my YouTube channel. That way you will know when I'm live and you will know what's going on. Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate that. Please like, subscribe, share, blah, 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 all the rest of it. You know what to do. And Abdullah, I would love to collaborate with you once again. And I'd love for you to come back on the show. Or if you want me to help you in any way, more than welcome. And the ex-M&A guys, get in contact with Abdullah. He's in Canada, not in America. So absolutely, yeah, exactly. So you know where to find him. And guys, I will see you next time, inshallah ta'ala. Please take care and have a great day, great week, whatever it is. Love, peace. See you guys. Thanks so much, Abdullah.